Welcome back to our YouTube channel, and thanks so much for joining me today. I have an interesting topic for you. Well, first of all, under our criminal law, as you know, you can be charged with impaired driving by alcohol or impaired driving by drug, or a combination to and or alcohol. And today I want to ask the question, well, what about cannabis impaired driving? How do the police test for that? And that's a serious problem in Canada, cannabis driving, and they're starting to crack down on this more and more. So here's how it goes about it. Let me give you some hypothetical situations. So let's say the police see you weaving on the roadway and they pull you over, and lo and behold, there's no odor of alcohol in your breath or anything, but you're acting a little quiet and whatnot. And maybe they suspect that you're under the influence of drugs. So what they can do is they can demand that you do standardized field sobriety tests, which is a walk and turn test, a one-leg stand for balance, and what's called a horizontal gaze nystagmus test, where you follow a pen or their finger. And it's shown that for marijuana impairment, your eyes will flicker. It's like a gaze nystagmus. It creates, it's not smoothly tracking it. So if you fail that test, that gives them the grounds to bring you back to the police station. They'll make what's called a drug recognition evaluation demand, where you have to submit to this 12-step process, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. It's very involved. It's an expert trained police officer who is going to determine whether you're impaired by any form of drug, let alone marijuana. Now, another thing they can do, which they're not doing much in Canada now, I haven't seen many of these, they brought in this legislation back in, I think, 2018 for saliva tests at the roadway. So they can give you a saliva test which detects drug level like THC. And that particular saliva test is a screening test. If you fail it, it gives them the grounds to, again, do the drug recognition evaluation. And they'll bring you back to the police station, make that demand, and then go through this involved 12-step process to determine if you're impaired by any particular drug, including marijuana. That's with a trained evaluator who's very trained in this area, police officer. Now, as well in Canada, they can demand a blood sample back at the police station. And there's what's called per se cannabis limits now in Canada. I won't get into it, but it's leveled in nanograms, and there's different fine levels of criminal charges. So if your blood test comes back showing a certain level of nanograms, you can get different charges and wind up with serious criminal record on that. So the 12-step DRE, that's what they call it, drug recognition value. That's a very involved process, and I always have trouble remembering all the steps. So I'm just going to take a look at my notes on that, and I'll review them with you a little bit. So first of all, they're going to have a breathalyzer test, actually an toxicologizer test, to rule out alcohol impairment. They're going to do you're going to do an interview with the arresting officer. The drug recognition officer is going to get the objective grounds. They're going to have a preliminary examination. They're going to check your pulse rate, your coordination, and your eye signs. They're going to do tracking of your eyes. They're going to do those balance tests again, the walking and divided attention test, and see what your balance is like. By the way, those tests are hard sober, particularly an older guy like me. I have a hard time doing those tests on a whether I had 0 drinks or 1 drink, and so that I don't know how much credence I put in those tests, because they're not easy to do. Vital signs, they check your blood pressure, pulse, body temperature, muscle tone, whether you have any injection sites. They're going to look at you very carefully. They're going to ask you an interview. You have a right to remain silent, though. You shouldn't answer those questions. Then this trained evaluator is going to form an opinion about what type of drug, if any, you're impaired by. It may be marijuana. It may be other types of drugs. They're trained in this sort of thing. And they can also do a blood test if they want. But oftentimes they're not doing blood tests. They're just doing a urinalysis. Now, urinalysis is very unsatisfactory really for court, because all it confirms is that, for example, you had traces of marijuana or cocaine in your blood. Now, you could have had that marijuana days before or the cocaine days before. So all that does is kind of possibly somewhat confirm the evaluator's opinion. The better test and the more conclusive test is a blood test. So if you do a blood test and it shows you've got things right in your bloodstream, well, you could be cooked unless there's a charge argument. But I can tell you this. The DRE is very unsatisfactory. There's been a lot of different rulings on it. It's a bit, I hate to say it, I find it a bit junk science, frankly, doing these. You got someone standing on one leg who's 60 years old who can't stand on a good day. It's a nerve-wracking situation, and there's competing arguments about how accepted it is. Of course, our courts in Canada accept it, but there is room to win these type of cases. Our office and myself have won many of these type of cases. We often hire our own expert to challenge the evidence as well, because it's nice to have our own expert there to say, look, this evaluator didn't do A, B, C, D appropriately, and their final conclusion report, which is step 12, whether there's impairment or not, is not valid. So I'm not saying those cases are easier to win, but they are, many of them are fraught with difficulties and holes. And if you know what you're doing during cross-examination and you know what you're looking for, and we obviously do this regularly in conjunction with our experts, you can often win these type of cases. So there you have it. The bottom line nutshell is there's screening tests at the roadside, saliva tests, which they're not doing much these days for not only marijuana but other drug testing. There's a screening test involving balance and following your eyes. If they get grounds to bring you back to the station, they can do that for a full drug recognition evaluation. And of course, they can take blood and urine samples as well. And as I mentioned, there's per se limits that you can't have marijuana in your bloodstream while you're driving. Some people, of course, with a minor amount of marijuana might not even be impaired while they're driving, where others will. But those blood tests are very conclusive. It doesn't matter whether that causes you impairment or not. You're going to get convicted. If the blood test shows certain level of nanograms, you're going to get different fines. So there you have it in a nutshell. It's a serious criminal offense, and it can obviously result in you losing your license and getting a criminal record. Not good. Marijuana may be legal in Canada now, but it's certainly not legal to have alcohol over the legal limit or any type of drug while you're driving. You shouldn't do that because you're going to get charged with these type of offenses. Thank you for watching our video. We are absolutely committed to bringing you the best possible criminal and DUI educational videos. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've been charged with a criminal offense in Ontario and require our services, please click on the link in the description below.